Hey everybody, it's Mikel Fair from Portland Comedy Film Festival. Ha ha, there he goes, three times the
Nice.
charm.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, Sam?
Not too much. Happy at work. This is my first time going live.
Oh, cool. Well, you know what? I'm kind of a an Instagram noob myself, but I decided to go ahead and take this foray into IG Live interviews because when you go live, it kind of notifies everybody that, hey, we're live. So it's that little extra boost, to know that everything's going on. But I'm glad to be the first one for you to live stream with.
I love it. Looks like we got some people jumping on here.
Looks like it. So your film, Lucky Undies, has torn through the film festival circuit. It is very rare that we get a film
Thank you, thank
that
you.
has really good job on this. And our judges from so many different film festivals, so many different people that don't even know each other have just responded to your work. And obviously the work of your actors and everybody, all your crew and everybody involved, but they've responded to your team with laughter all around. And it's really been a pleasure to see Lucky Undies just do so well. So good
Yeah,
job.
thank you. I mean, I appreciate all the acceptances and involved with the festivals. It's just been so much fun to see.
Thanks, man. And we got you coming up. We have you scheduled for our summer 2022 event. And just so people aren't confused, we actually have our spring event is this Sunday, and our summer event will be in early September. So hopefully you'll be available for that one. You think you're going to come up to Portland?
I'd love to. I've never been, but I heard Portland has a really cool, very like up and coming art scene, film scene, and all that good stuff.
For sure. Portland's definitely, and the Clinton Street Theater is located kind of in the artsy district of, right outside of downtown. It's a lot of fun. And it'd just be, good for you to come up to see these different cities. It's got some similarities to Austin, but it's definitely got its differences. But, let's talk about Austin, man. You swept a big award there. And I got the chance to finally meet you there. And, best comedy film, man. That's a pretty serious award, brother.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it was so fun because just being there was great, even if we didn't win an award. We were just stoked to travel. It's cool to see Austin, but then to win the award just set the tone for the entire trip. And like everything from that point on was just a high for the next 2.5 days.
Good stuff, man. Well, you got to tell me what it's like. It's getting harder and harder for film festival directors like myself to maintain live events. Obviously, it's just the world has changed in a lot of ways. But man, when I'm there and I'm seeing people laugh at the stuff I was laughing at, and even pick up on jokes that I didn't even pick up on,
Oh,
what's the
totally.
live what's the live experience like? How do you benefit as a director seeing that?
I feel like it's just that's like the dream, you know? I mean, of course, to go and make big studio movies for millions of dollars is the end game, but I think to just to make something and see it on a big screen is it's a treat. I mean, everything you make, you're either watching on the phone or the computer. If you're lucky enough, you'll have a couple friends over and put it on a TV. But I think to just see it in a theater chair where you can smell the popcorn and you got a bunch of people you've never met, it's just like that feeling in and of itself feels like you've made it as a filmmaker.
For sure. And that's the great thing about comedy. It's like an instant gratification genre, right? I always joke with people that, if you have a fantastic drama, you don't really know it until you get like this golf clap at the end.
Right.
But, with comedy and I guess horror films as well, like with comedy, you hear people just kind of bust out laughing. It's kind of like an involuntary response, and you can kind of catch like, oh, that was funny, or that joke caught, or whatever. Of course, with horror films, if you see somebody vomiting or like running out of the room or something, then you probably reached your goal. But in the case of comedy and playing comedy with comedy, not only did you, this is what I see as a director, you get a chance to see your stuff live, but then you're kind of picking up on what the crowd is laughing at with other films there. Did you get your gears turning when you were in Austin?
Oh,
How did that
totally.
work?
I mean, it's cool because all the other shorts you see are so well done. So it's cool to be kind of grouped into those. And you learn a lot. I feel like we left with so many takeaways. Just I was trying not to be on my phone, of course. That's rude, but you're watching, you're like, oh shoot, like that's a great idea. Like writing stuff down, like oh, I love how they did this, and it's for sure inspirational. I think you learn a lot seeing other shorts. And it's cool because like, very seldom would you sit at home and watch, 10, 15, 20 shorts back to back. But going to the festival, it's like an abundance of learning and you get to see so much. And you get to see a lot of great filmmakers too who come from a different perspective, a different voice. So it was just really, I was really fortunate to see those different takes on comedies.
Good stuff. Well, one of the things that some people do when they come to the festivals, they do a little bit of casting. They'll be like, "Hey, I've seen that guy
Right.
before," or sometimes people will mention an actor like, "Oh, I've worked with that person before." I want to get into casting, and I guess first of all, did you see anybody that you recognize at all at the festival?
Two people. There's
You,
two actors we saw, and it's so funny because you're sitting there and you kind of have that moment where you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I know that person, or I've worked with that person." So two of the actors, Jaton Gilbert was one of them, and then Janet Carter was the other. Both of which we've worked on some different commercial projects with. So it's just
hmm
funny. It's just like you feel like you're watching your friends, and it's like it's so surreal being in Austin too. It'd be one thing, if we're in in Los Angeles or in Hollywood, but to be in a different state watching people, you kind of feel like the community feels a lot smaller, which I think is really
Sure.
comforting. It's cool to like be in this big world of everybody trying to do the same thing and being like, oh, that's my friend. I've worked with her. He's great. She's great. And then to leave, and now you have 20 more connections from directors to DPs to writers, and it's just it's a cool experience.
Yeah, man, the connections are what it's all about. And I wanted to ask you about casting in your film. Did you do like an old school, just we're just doing a casting call and finding whoever fits? Or did you pull out the Rolodex and just kind of fill up the film with the people who you already knew? Or was it a combination of both?
It was a combo of both. So the two of the leads, Adam Hirschman and Steele Stebbins, were in a good friend of mine, a producing partner's movie he had made.
hmm
So I saw those characters in his movie and fell in love with them. So when I started to write Lucky Undies, it was very much written around that Steve Goldberg character that Adam Hirschman absolutely crushed. I mean, he resounding feedback for all the actors, but he's the one that everyone is like, oh, he was so funny, he was so fun to watch. I've seen him. So really lucky that my friend Jonathan, who had worked with those actors, made a quick email intro. We sent those guys the script, and fortunately, they both loved it, which was really cool to get that kind of feedback because you never know. So it's like they said they were down, and then at that point, we're like, okay, this is the best. We got the people that we kind of wrote this thing around. We're good to press go. And then Will's character, who was played by Nigel Palmer, who also was a home run actor and talent, we found through Backstage. So we just did traditional casting. We did Backstage. We did LA casting. I think we might have done Frontier, and we did that for Polly the plumber, for Nick's mom Pauline, and then for Will. All
hmm
pretty substantial roles, being a short film. And we just collected a bunch of audition tapes and kind of did a couple Zoom auditions and did some read throughs. And everyone very much felt, once we saw them, we're like, okay, that's the person. There weren't too many people that it was like a tough decision between.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to understand the tools that you're using because a lot of times people in, Hollywood, or in acting circles will complain like, hey, if you don't have a relationship with somebody already, then you can't build a relationship. And it's good to know that you're pulling people out of casting calls and finding people, that not just working only with people that you know, which is, I understand a little bit of both because there's certain roles that you just want to make sure you get done and you want an actor who's like synchronized with what your vision is for the film.
Oh,
Um,
totally. And
but
it's tough too. Like I think it's the cliche of some people are going to come from a strong network of talent where you're like, I know this guy because he was in this, or we're having this person call this guy's manager or this girl's agent. And then some of it is literally just people who have never acted or people who look the part and they give the best performance.
well, that brings me to another thing. Have you ever, comedy, when you're writing a screenplay, you're trying to figure out the timing, you're trying to figure out the pacing, you're trying to make sure that you have enough funnies here, enough funnies there. And in your head, it might sound a certain way, but have you ever put a script in front of an actor before and they just took it to a whole nother level?
Oh, for sure. Especially with this. I mean, I can humbly say I think some of the funniest parts weren't in the script. I think it was just like we did the best we could to get the project in a good spot. And then the actors kind of took it a different way. Some of which came before we actually went into production, where you know,
Mm.
Adam would come back and be like, "Hey, what if we tried this?" or "What do you think of this?" And then a lot of it just came from being on set, where you would try something and the bones of, "Hey, this is what we're trying to say are here," and then the actor would put their own spin on it or put it in what they felt were the character's words, and that was the funniest moment. So it's like, you know, you kind of hang your head for a second, like, oh my gosh, you know, that is anything I wrote actually funny enough to make it to the screen? But then once you realize you're creating a foundation and the actors are going to do what they do best, it kind of feels more fun and collaborative.
Well, you know, the production is really high level on your film, and it begs the question: do you have your own production company, or do you just kind of assemble a crew and gear every once in a while to shoot a film?
Yeah, so I have my own production company, Exit 14, and historically we've existed mostly in the commercial space. So we've been really
Mhm.
fortunate to meet all these great people and work with great people on the expense of a client. So we've been able to do cool productions and rent fancy gear and do all this stuff while, you know, like we call it, you're learning with somebody else's money. And
Mhm. Mhm.
in doing so, we had the opportunity to, first of all, pay a lot of these people just through actual commercial jobs. So when it came time to do our first passion project, this was the first short film I've written and directed. It was an easier ask to go after these people and be like, hey, we don't have nearly the budget that we usually do, but you know, if you like the project, read the script. If you think it'd be fun, we would love to work together on this. So we were really lucky that a lot of the crew that are top tier DPs and top tier lighting department, G&E, and everything from art to makeup and so on and so forth. We had super talented people that were down for the cause, and they were down to work for, you know, way less than they should be getting paid, and they were just happy to be there. So I think because of that, we were able to produce something that looked way bigger and way more professional than it should have for the budget that was spent.
Yeah, it looked good, man. It was intimidating to some people. They're just like, man, the sound, the color, the picture, like it was dope, you know, like people enjoyed it. So, you know, let's I'm gonna play time machine with you here. So I'm talking to the Sam Silverstein that has completed the film and it's already running on the film festival circuit and it's doing great. But if you were to talk to the Sam Silverstein that was just about to shoot this film, and you wanted to give yourself some advice, maybe there's some hurdles you had to climb, or maybe there was something difficult, or maybe there was something that took longer than you thought, or maybe there's something that cost more than you thought. Is there any advice that this Sam would give that Sam?
I think the biggest thing would be get more takes. I feel like that was the number one thing I wish we'd have done. And it's so
Hmm.
hard because everyone there is doing it out of the goodness of their heart, from talent to crew to every department. So it's like
Hmm.
you don't really have the dollars to push into overtime so much. You don't really have the time. So everything was just like, man, we're finishing this shot at 2:30, set up for the next one by 2:40. We have to be out of that by 2:50, so on and so
Hmm.
forth. So I think the biggest thing I would say is get more alts and schedule a little bit less shots. I wish we'd
Hmm.
have had a little bit more options to play with in post, just because the actors were so good, they were so talented, but there would be times where it's like we only have time to get what's on the page, and we'd have to get it and move on. And I wish we could have given the actors more flexibility to just kind of do some different takes. So I think that would be
Sure.
my biggest takeaway is like, okay, you got it this way. That's great. It's in the can. Do it a different way. Get a different version of it. Have the actor do something totally different, totally unscripted, and then kind of see what plays best in post.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. People learn from this stuff. So our young filmmakers, you know, the people who are at our film festivals are all short film events. We don't have feature films, so it's a certain level of production where people are just taking that step. Oftentimes, their little film school step before they go on to do, you know, a bigger feature or talk about shooting those big millions like you were talking about. So another thing I want to ask you about is just from the outside looking in, for someone who's not in the film industry at all, someone who's not, you know, on a crew or anything, but from a pure entertainment value, why should somebody check out a film festival? You know, and you like, what are you going to see if you're the normal person that's watching, you know, Doctor Strange or some gigantic, you know, Jennifer Lopez big budget movie or something like that? Why pay attention to this little independent film festival that might be screening in your area?
One, I think it's just fun. I think if you like whatever the genre is, drama, horror, comedy, it's cool because you don't really get to see films in that medium. Usually it's either a big grandiose, movie you're watching on Netflix or in the theater, or it's something on YouTube where, that content's great, but it's not a produced piece that has a start and a finish. So I think the biggest reason I would tell someone to go if you're just a fan of films is it's a different experience and you get to see short stories. I mean, it sounds obvious because it's short films, but I think to see a story kind of unfold in a matter of 7-8 minutes, it's refreshing, it's easy to watch, it's fun, it's goofy, and I'd say it's probably most comparable to like a stand-up comedy show. It's like sometimes
Okay.
they're really great and you love it, and then the next one you're like, that wasn't for me, but I get how they might have liked it or how they thought it was funny. But I think it's just another form of entertainment.
All right. And finally, so what's left for you after Lucky Undies? What you got something cooking? Is something marinating? What do you got?
I might just retire. I don't know. I feel like we did a good job. We had fun. It's, might just hang up the cleats. Uh, we would love to. I would love to make this into a movie. I think we've gotten such positive response from people like yourself, which means a lot, and from other friends, colleagues, and strangers. So it feels like we'd be doing ourselves a injustice to not at least see it through. So I'm currently working on a feature script for it. Would love to see how the story could expand if we weren't limited financially, if we weren't limited by time, and just kind of seeing where could this thing go? How crazy could we push the limits? So to turn that into a full feature would be a dream. And then just a couple other short scripts and really trying to, I guess, work the narrative muscle, just kind of see what else can we learn and how else can we take things away. So that way each project is funnier and better and stronger and looks better. So that way, by the time we get to the point where we have the opportunity to do those big films, we're ready.
So you're thinking about it, maybe a Lucky Lingerie
Oh yeah,
sequel or
totally. It would be so fun, and I feel like coming from the commercial world, I'm always writing so budget conscious, where I'm like, oh, like what's
Mhm.
that going to cost? So I've been really trying to challenge myself to write as a writer and not as a producer, and write the funniest stuff. And if there's a car explosion, there's a car explosion, and until you get the note from someone that's like, hey, can't afford a car explosion, then you take it out. So I've been really trying to write the funniest, write the best, and not try to write it with any kind of dollar amount in mind.
I hear you. Well, best of luck to you, my man. You're off to a great start. If this is your first short film, then wow, you're ahead of the game. Lucky Undies, no matter where it's screening. If you want to see it in Portland, it'll be later on in September, or at the beginning of September, actually. But if you find this film on the film festival circuit, I'm glad to put a link to any page or anything that you have dedicated so that people know when it's screening. I encourage people to check out Lucky Undies, super funny film, and well accepted by audiences worldwide. So
Thank you.
good
And thank you
luck.
for having me. Appreciate all the acceptances. And like I said, to anyone watching it or considering making a short or submitting, Michael's the best. And it's just cool to see your work on the big screen is a milestone in and of itself. And that's something most people don't get to do. So submit your short film if you're thinking about it.
All right. Thank you for the kind words, and I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.
Take it easy.